Hey everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka MBT, and wow, a lot of people came out to save this one. Locals Live, back for the 2020 season of the MBT Yu-Gi-Oh! Channel. Of course, because I was on vacation this past week, this isn't at Locals, it's an exhibition match against Gavone, a prominent figure in MBT lore. I'm playing Sky Striker, and he is on Traptrix Paleo, having graduated from playing only frogs. We're going first, and wow, what an opener. We're going to lead with a copy of Multi-Roll, followed by a reinforcement of the army to get ourselves a copy of Ray to our grip. Of course, Paleo suffers going second, and Traptrix resolves some of these problems, but can't do much against an explosive Sky Striker start. We also have a copy of Engage in our grip, so we're going to go ahead and get a copy of Area 0. You're probably more than familiar with this combo. We're going to normal summon a copy of Ray, then trigger the effect of Area 0 targeting the Ray, chaining the Ray effect, so that we can both resolve the Kagari we're about to go into and fetch a card off the top of our deck. Let's see what we find. An Afterburners, a Hornet Drones, and a Metal Foes Fusion. I consult my grip real quickly, trying to think of what I could possibly take, and decide on Metal Foes Fusion. Then I remember that there actually is text on Area 0, and I'm not allowed to take cards that don't have Sky Striker in their name. Give me a break, it's been a whole 3 days since I played. I'll go ahead and take Afterburners, though I'm not particularly thrilled about it. Usually I want to be taking cards that advance my game state, not react to my opponent's plays while they haven't made any. Still, we should be able to get a couple of triggers of this multi-roll off, which is really all I'm looking for. We're going to go into a copy of Shizuku. Take a look at our grip one more time. I believe we have one card to set. You can see a flash of purple in our opener. We'll set one card, then trigger the effect of Shizuku. The Shizuku Shuffle is much less powerful now that, getting Widow Anchor means you're not going to have access to it twice. But we can still perform it by using Eagle Booster and then resolving multi-roll for 2. We're going to fetch the Eagle Booster and this copy of Engage, leaving, I think, 1 or 2 spell cards in the graveyard. I hope you appreciate how I suffer for my art. Wow, did I have to rewind this a whole bunch of times to figure out how much damage I was dealing. Alright, so Gavin is about to go. Let's see just what his deck is capable of. Well, he's going to lead with a Swap Frog, and that's about as good as it gets. Swap Frog is able to send a copy of Ronin Totem to the graveyard, or a Dupe Frog if he already has a Ronin Totem and aims to send it to the graveyard with the effect of Swap Frog. Gonna shuffle through the deck and then send a Ronin Totem straight to the grave. Afterwards, you'll see the most important, explosive, powerful play Paleo is capable of. Gavin's going to trigger the effect of Swap Frog in order to return it to his hand, and then whop his wad on the table. And there it is. Oof. Okay, that's 5 trap cards I'm going to have to chew through. The trick to playing against Paleo is you don't want to commit to very many high-risk actions. Sometimes it's in your best interest just to attack directly for a couple of turns and chip in damage. Admittedly, their real only blowouts are things like Solemn Judgment, so if you don't play into those cards, they're forced to flip others. Unfortunately, we've drawn a copy of, Jamming Waves, prompting an Imperial Order from our opponent. It's gonna be one of those games. Now, we can play through it to some degree. I have a really useless hand trap in my hand that hopefully we'll get a chance to show off in a little bit, but other than that, oh boy, this Shizuku is going to have to do some heavy lifting. I don't want to commit to something like a Hayate, because if I do so, our opponent's Solemns are now turned on. I really just want to keep hitting in over the course of a couple turns. In the meantime, it's unlikely he's really going to be able to get in through it, and there's kind of a clock in our opponent's head. Hayate means that if he drops to 1500, I am well within my rights to call the game for myself, so a couple of attacks from Shizuku might be enough to lock it up. I think real quickly, do I really want to give him a lot of opportunities to find a way to activate a Paleo? I decide against it. 5 cards in the Spell and Trap card zone also turns off Trap Trick, notably, and means he'll have to commit to at least 1 activation before he can activate it. We'll get in for 1500, and we are well on our way. He's on, what, a 6-turn clock under Imperial Order? Oh boy. Alright, as I pass it back, he'll go ahead and note his life points before his standby phase, and then take them down to 5,800. He'll normal summon a copy of Swap Frog. Who didn't see that coming? This time, he'll send a card he can banish off of Ronin Totem to bring that Ronin Totem back and get the Toads onto the board. This is a deck that's going to be a lot more powerful under the next Master Rule revision. He's going to send a Swap Frog here, no use in having multiples. Dupe Frog is useful for summoning off of Totally Awesome's effect, Swap Frog less so. He's going to activate the effect of Ronin Totem in Graveyard, and thankfully I have found a use for the card in my hand. I say, no, I've got a response to your ridiculous card, and look at my hand real quickly. I think what I end up doing is sending a copy of Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion to the graveyard. My graveyard's a little cut off, so you'll just have to take my word for it. Gavin's going to go ahead and return this copy of Swap Frog to the hand and pass it back, taking 700 in the standby phase. Well, we'll get in for another 15. This is going pretty well. We just have to do this, I think, one more time before we're safely in Hayate range. We'll set one card and pass it back to the boy. Now, unfortunately for Gavin, our set cards aren't all spells. Of course, a vast majority of them are. We are playing Sky Striker after all, but we've got a couple more tricks up our sleeve. As Sky Striker has had to pivot in order to beat extremely consistent decks like Orcust, they've started playing extremely powerful blowouts that are not particularly fair. This Swap Frog is going to send, I believe, a Swap Frog to the graveyard. That's number 3. Oh, a Dupe Frog this time. Doesn't want to chance the final swap, and I don't blame him. One unfortunate part of Ronin Totem is it can't actually banish Ronin Totem for its own effect. So this time, I'm going to flip up there can be only one in order to prevent Gavin from bringing the Ronin Totem to his side of the field, but he has the Solemn Judgment. That puts him down to a comfortable 1450. That's Hayate range for those of you keeping score at home. Afterwards, he is going to resolve the effect of Ronin Totem, bringing it to the side of the field, after which I'll activate There Can Be Only One. Now, Gavin's in a bit of a pickle here. He wants to activate something like Paleozoic Oleanades or Paleozoic Dynamiscus, but he's also got a Traptrix set. Traptrix isn't good as a response to this because it's going to resolve, which means one of these two waters is going to the graveyard. It means he'll have to commit to several additional Paleo plays in order to make that toad that's eluded his grasp so far. He's considering his options here. Gavone is a classically slow player. There's not much for him to worry about, however, because I think it's unlikely we're going to find a judge willing to call him on it. Quick shout out to Inked Gaming for this playmat. It was a Christmas gift to me, and I absolutely love it. He's going to decide to send this Swap Frog to the graveyard, and I believe set one additional card. So many set cards makes Traptrix hard to resolve, and I'm counting on it not resolving if I'm to take this game. Alright, when it gets back to me, Gavone is down to 750 life points. That is an absolutely unfortunate life total for me. It unfortunately means that he's going to get one more turn out of this Imperial Order, and I'm not going to be able to activate spell cards on his turn, which is when I would likely need it the most. This turn, however, I don't really need to commit to an attack like I have in previous turns. Putting Gavin down to 50 is likely good enough. At end step, he's going to activate a Paleozoic in order to banish my There Can Be Only One, and now we have a problem. The next thing he's going to do is activate Traptrix. That Traptrix is going to, unfortunately for me, find the exact same Paleo that was just activated. It's a great all-around answer, but for the time being, Gavin doesn't have any additional cards in his hand. He's going to go ahead and banish one for the cost, and then set an additional copy. Alright, this isn't that bad. At the very least, I can force whatever's in his grip out of it, and if I can survive until the next turn, I'm confident I can chew through almost any number of negates. Sure, Totally Awesome is a fantastic way to stop me from popping off, but it doesn't deal with cards that are already on the field. This copy of Area Zero and this copy of Multi-Roll are going to be huge problems should they survive, and more importantly, Toad can't negate spell effects. It's one of the most frustrating parts of the card, especially in a format where Trickstar Reincarnation was legal. I reveal the third and final There Can Be Only One in standby phase, and unfortunately Gavin has to waste the card in his hand along with the freshly set Paleo in order to dispatch it. That card's an Ash, by the way. As an individual with an Engage currently set, I'm feeling pretty good about it. In response to Gavone's Paleozoic, I'm going to activate Eagle Booster. Now, it doesn't do anything because Imperial Order is still live, but importantly, it prevents Gavone from summoning a copy of Paleozoic from his graveyard. I think the way that I lose this game involves multiple Totally Awesome, and I want to stop that by any means necessary. Just confirming real quick that in fact Imperial Order is going to prevent any effect from resolving, and I say, yeah, I'm just using it in order to get myself a copy of Paleozoic launched in the graveyard instead of on your side of the field. Unfortunately, the boy has now made an appearance, and this is going to be a problem for me. Now, it's not as strong as it could be. Obviously, Shizuku is reducing its attack, but not by much. Attacking will still deal 500 points of damage to me, and importantly, does dispatch Shizuku. We'll activate the effect of Ray in Graveyard, which at least prompts the negation out of my opponent, but he should still be able to pop off from this position, provided he has one more activatable trap. I'm going to read Toad real quick. Yeah, it can negate even in the damage step. Unfortunately, because it negates activations, it is effectively an Omni. I'll trigger the effect of Ray in Graveyard at the very least. Gavin's going to think for a couple of seconds. Of course, this isn't something you can let resolve. If Ray makes it back onto the field, then there's almost no way he'd be able to prevent the Hayate effect. That Hayate doesn't have to actually activate anything in order to attack directly, and it can chew through Dupe Frog, which is unfortunate. After a quick deliberation, quick in Gavin terms, of course, he'll activate the effect of Totally Awesome, eschewing the cards that he just sent to the graveyard in order to prevent my Ray from returning. He'll get a Swap Frog back, and I don't think he's normal summon this turn, which is terrible news for me. Here's the Swap Frog, and there should still be one swap and one dupe in deck if I remember his ratios. That's absolutely enough to pop off. All he needs is exactly those two, one for the fodder and one for the search, in order to make my life very awesome. He'll go ahead and send the Swap Frog, and then shuffle his deck back up. From here, he should be able to make anything he wants. However, there's some argumentation about what that should be. Now, you could make it Totally Awesome, of course, but potentially you should also reborn a Paleozoic and make an Anomaly Karis. You could make an Opabinia and dispatch with my set card and my couple of spells. He's thinking about it real quickly. There are just so many options in this deck, it's hard to commit to one. And since the difference between a win and a loss is going to be which most effectively deals with Hayate, this is going to matter a lot. So he's going to go for Traptrix here. That's very bad for me. I didn't think he would have another one. This means he'll have two Paleozoic activations, and I don't think I have anything to interrupt with anymore. Now, the Traptrix here can get almost anything. He lands on, oh boy, this bad boy. I think that's Paleozoic Oleanades, and that is really terrible news for the individual with a couple of continuous spells currently activated. Okay, from here, he can once again reborn the Ronin Totem to make whatever he wants. An Opabinia would be nice, but I think there aren't any more copies of Oleanades, or if there is, there's only one. It's going to take some quick thinking on Gavin's part to figure out what exactly he should be doing in this scenario. If he just had more frogs in the graveyard, he could commit to, oh, I don't know, even something as banal as a Starboy and a Toad, but he doesn't. He's going to go ahead and overlay 3/4 Anomaly Karis, and then unfortunately realize the harsh truth of playing Traptrix Sarah in your Paleozoic deck. You don't have enough spaces in the extra for all of the flex 2s that you used to. Instead, he's going to keep that Ronin in the graveyard and think, okay, I mean, there's really only one answer for this. You have to go into Toad, and then you have to negate anything and everything that threatens to bring out Ray. Finally, this Imperial Order has left the board and we can play. It's hard to remember that this game that we are currently in severe danger of winning was played without use of 80% of our deck. Such is the power of Sky Striker, and you all are counting this monster out. Alright, we will go ahead and set one card to begin with. We'll activate the effect of this multi-roll. Now this is going to prevent Gavone from responding to our spell activations, so of course it's going to be met with an Oleanades. Now go ahead and look at my grip real quick. Okay, probably the next step is to either activate the Engage, which I will do here, or activate the Area 0, which I elect to do second. Gavone's going to look real quick, and unfortunately, this may get the Totally Awesome. If it does, we should be in great shape. If you've been keeping track, you know that I have one additional card in hand, one that I've had since the beginning of the duel, one that I searched extremely early, almost for this express purpose. I'm going to go ahead and activate it now. Fire it off, baby! It's Afterburners. And while this Paleozoic isn't affected, the Dupe Frog that Gavin searched is. Ideally, this will destroy both the Dupe Frog and the copy of Area 0, netting me a Ray from deck. All I need is for that set card to be absolutely nothing, and... thankfully, it is. Gavin will scoop, and we will make it to Game 2. So for Game 2, unfortunately, we are going second, and more unfortunately, Gavin has drawn into the relevant half of his deck, the Traptrix. The old, extinct, no longer powerful Paleozoics are something I'm not particularly bothered by, especially when this deck has such a difficult time making turn 1 Toad, but the Traptrix are a little more threatening. Traptrix Sarah, an extremely powerful card that I basically have to open Widow Anchor for, not only threatens to OTK me with Boral Sword setups, it also threatens to destroy my spells and traps by activating the effect of Mirmello. Funny how that card's effect is still relevant in 2020. Well, the first step to all of this is to get a copy of Traptrix Trap Hole of Nightmare from deck. Gavin is on a very expansive Trap Hole suite. I believe he's got Bottomless, Time Space, Nightmare, and Floodgate. Floodgate, of course, does very little against me, but this one is surprisingly relevant. Here comes Sarah, and probably the worst thing we could see here is, like, set 4 pass. As long as he's got other monsters in hand, I'm not particularly worried. And, of course, here comes set 4 pass. Well, if nothing else, this deck is consistent. Now, I don't want to commit to too much here. Certainly, he's sideboarded a lot of cards specifically for Striker. I didn't have too much to bring in, as I think only the relevant things for Altergeist are relevant in this matchup, and I'm not packing too much hate for the 7th best deck. He, on the other hand, may have things like Heavy Stormduster, which I am always scared of, Imperial Order, of course, and tons of stuff like Cosmic Cyclone that, while not necessarily traps and Sarah triggers, would ruin my day. We'll lead with a copy of, oh god, it's gonna be one of these games, huh? Well, Hornet Drones isn't fantastic, especially into a set copy of Traptrix Trap Hole of Nightmare. I figure I might as well proc it. We'll look at the extra and finally settle on a Kagari. I'll activate the effect of the Kagari. I think it's possible this resolves. I mean, it's not like we're getting back and engage, but Gavin pulls the trigger and says, no, we're going to Traptrix Trap Hole of Nightmare here. Now, this isn't a counter trap, so I can respond. I'm going to lead with a copy of Cosmic Cyclone in order to target one of Gavin's set cards before he's ready to use it. I target the center card, and oh boy, Gavin really doesn't want to let it go. He's going to flip up a Solemn Judgment, taking 4,000 points of damage to protect it, and at this point I am sure it is something extremely powerful against me specifically. Now, it can't be Artifact Sanctum, though it does occasionally play that card. He would have flipped it as soon as I summoned the token. Instead, my mind is completely set on Heavy Stormduster, so I'm going to set one card before passing it back to my opponent. Now, notably, he did not activate the effect of Sarah here, trying to get a 3-for-1, I believe, off of what I expect to be a Heavy Stormduster. He's going to normal summon a copy of Dionea, having not activated the effect of Sarah last turn. Okay, that's pretty good, I suppose. Now, unfortunately, I do have a copy of Called by the Grave in my hand that I neglected to set, instead favoring to play around Heavy Stormduster. Thankfully, that's a pretty big payoff. As I flip the There Can Be Only One, he flips the Heavy Stormduster, and is only going to be able to destroy one spell and trap, even off the Mirmello effect, should he decide to get it, instead of, oh, I don't know, 3. So the Mirmello returns, and from deck we'll probably get a Viper. Now, Mantis isn't particularly powerful here, you know, the effect isn't super relevant, but the fact that you're summoning additional material puts me squarely in Boral Sword range. Thankfully, Gavin has used his normal summon and has exactly 4 material. He would need at least 1 more if he aims to do anything. You can see a Paleozoic frog on the very bottom of his deck. Boy, am I glad this is not backed up by a toad. Instead, Gavin's just going to search a copy of Bottomless, but he is pretty squarely ahead here. Thankfully, if nothing else, this deck kind of lacks the ability to close games. It makes up for it by having a rank 4 suite and consistently making Utopia double. But as long as I play around Utopia double effectively, I should be able to drag this game out very long, at which point I am favored. He's going to switch that copy of Viper to attack position. Mantis, sorry, I have terminal OCG brain. It's a casual, so I'm not going to get on his case about summoning it in defense position, but remember, folks, ensure that you're summoning in the correct position. Looking at the extra deck, there's not a ton he can go into here. Abyss Dweller's okay, but not fantastic. Probably Tornado Dragon is the pick. At the very least, it can recoup some of the spell and trap destruction that he lost in the previous play. We're taking 4,000 here just from the attacks of these meager monsters. Wow! I hate that the Traptrix are this beefy. After that, of course, he'll decide what he's going to overlay with. The rank 4 pool, unfortunately, is particularly reactive to this day. It's very good at cleaning up problem monsters, but not very good at mounting an offensive strat. Tornado Dragon is going to be it. That's pretty bad news for me. It turns off a significant amount of my deck, but I still might be able to play around it. He's going to shuffle the material. Sir, this is competitive REL. Don't you know the kitchen table has rules? And then he's going to try and play under Master Rule 5 for about half a second before putting it back. So of course this Tornado Dragon is going to be a huge threat to any Area Zeros, any multi-rolls that we rip off the top, but I do have one card that should ensure my plays are unencumbered. It is Widow Anchor. We're going to lead with that, and while it doesn't take the Tornado Dragon, that would be just a little bit too good, it does negate its effects, which should be good enough. Gavin's going to think real quick. Activating the Tornado Dragon here would be extremely funny, but not really do anything. Next, we're going to activate Engage, and thankfully that Widow Anchor was the third one in our graveyard. This is going to allow us to search a Ray from deck, and thank goodness for that. I hate playing this deck Rayless. The difference is just night and day. After adding the Ray to the deck, of course, we are going to draw. This is an improvement over my previous games with the deck, as anyone who has watched more than one episode of Locals Live can attest to. There certainly are a ton of skill tests in Sky Striker, but for me the most basic one, drawing an additional card off of your Engage for 3, occasionally eludes me. We'll go ahead and normal summon this Ray, and Gavin is now faced with a very interesting proposition. He's got 3 traps set. If they're 2 pieces of removal, and he flips this copy of Infinite Impermanence, it's possible that I chain the effect of Ray, fearing that he has a second removal spell set that would otherwise threaten it. I'll go into Hayate, he can activate this copy of Bottomless Trap Hole that we know he has, then when I resummon the Ray, he can use the 3rd piece of removal in order to dispatch it. Is it worth minusing yourself so hard just to deal with Ray? Well, given that I telegraphed I didn't have it after turn 1, maybe it is. He is going to activate the Infinite Impermanence, and I will blink. Let's go into Hayate. After the Hayate is summoned, of course, he'll be able to activate the Bottomless that he has set, and we are in for it. Not before, of course, his trademark Gavin playstyle. Let's check out both cards. Yeah, they're still the same too. I'm going to get my mother up here. She's going to take your juice box away for failing to maintain a competitive game state. Finally, he activates Bottomless Trap Hole. I urge you, if you play against Gavin in real life, to really make fun of his pace. Well, my Hayate is not long for this world. It will soon be banished, but I will be able to activate the effect of Ray in Graveyard, which is good enough. We'll bring back the Ray, and Gavin is going to resolve the effect of Sarah. No, he doesn't get to chew through any of my spells or traps, but that's probably fine. It looks like he's gotten a Mirmello, and of course Mirmello's effect does trigger even if you don't have a spell or trap. It's a very old effect and is mandatory. Afterwards, he's going to get a copy of Time-Space Trap Hole. Now, this is actually a particular problem for me. This card is really, really good against Sky Strikers specifically. Alright, he's going to hand me back the deck, and I'll give it a good old shuffle before he sets that Time-Space Trap Hole, and now activates any removal he may have remaining. Ugh, a trap trick. Well, that could be absolutely anything. He's going to go immediately back into the deck. Makes you wonder why he handed it back to me in the first place. Again, keep an eye on your opponents if they're slow playing. If you see Gavin at a regional, start a speed chess timer as soon as he sits down. Unfortunately, Trap Trick not only represents removal, but it also unlocks the other half of Gavin's deck. He could potentially start making toads, should he decide on a paleo. He'll shuffle it back and finally decide on, the spell and trap destruction. Doesn't want to minus too hard, but does want to prevent me from popping off. Okay, well, there's the Paleozoic, and now I'm going to have to worry. I do still have the Ray, which is pretty good. I hope that it's enough. We're going to look at our grip real quick, and oh man, I don't want to spoil anything, but there is a lot of stuff in it. Okay, so you can see the Hercules base. We could potentially bait our opponent into using Tornado Dragon on that, but I don't know how important it is. We've got another couple of cards that are unfortunately ripe for the dragoning. We've got to get that dragon dealt with. Our first step, however, is going to be destroying the Mirmello. Remember, one of the only ways we lose this game is if Gavin is able to make Utopia the Lightning, and you can see the Double or Nothing was still in the deck, so we have to keep his board clear of as many rank 4s as possible. Okay, now we are going to go into Kana. Kana is going to target Tornado Dragon. I expect it's the only monster that would remain on the field should Utopia Double make an appearance. Here comes Shizuku. Now, unfortunately, Shizuku doesn't have very many good targets. We already have the Engage in the graveyard. We've just activated Widow Anchor. What on earth are we going to get? While multi-roll certainly sounds alluring, I have terrible news. It is not in our deck. Instead, it's in our hand. This is about the least safe place it can be, because not only does it mean Shizuku can't search it, but also it is immediately under threat by this Paleozoic. At the very least, it forces its activation, and means that he won't be activating it on our secret set card, so that might be good enough. Unfortunately, at end step, as I go to resolve the effect of the multi-roll, there is the Paleozoic. It does mean our Shizuku is going to resolve unencumbered, unthreatened by that remaining trap card. He just played it anyway, so it's not like it would be. Thankfully, we still haven't activated a copy of Area Zero, so that's a pretty good get, all things considered. If our copy of Hercules Base survives until next turn, we could pop off. Alright, we'll pass it back to Gavone, and we are under threat by everything. Any rank 4 represents a Utopia double. He could just go into any random link to and just kill us right here, provided that set card that we have does nothing. He could push for more advantage. He could destroy what we have. He's going to ask what Hercules Base does real quick. Yeah, it does have an equip effect. It's actually shockingly good, even though it's mostly used just to recycle Kagari. Well, forcing the activation with Tornado Dragon is a little powerful. I would really hope that he doesn't do that. He's going to think about his options real quickly. It's unfortunate that there's not any Paleozoics on his side of the field, or else they would really be unlocked. Now he finally decides, yes, I will gun for the set card, and it is a Shark Cannon. This is really good news for me, because the card that he detached is Mere Mellow. I'm able to special this copy of Mere Mellow, because I have 3 spells in my graveyard, and Mere Mellow's special summon effect doesn't exactly care where it came from, be it Sarah or Shark Cannon. We'll activate the effect of Mere Mellow to destroy that set trap. Now I don't have to worry about time, space, trap, hole, just about basically everything else. Gonna look real quickly at Sarah, and no, there is not an opportunity to flip this time space. At the very least, we won't see another monster this turn. Well, it looks like the card that was ripped off the top was a trap, which means it's not going to do anything. I'm going to remind him real quickly about Shizuku. I believe things are being decreased by 600 or 700. You can check the life totals. I had to earlier. Again, think how I suffered to keep things consistent. Without a monster to beat over my Shizuku, I might just be able to ride this minus 700 train to victory. He's only at 4,000, and we're only a couple of Hayate hits away from walking away with this one. As long as we can resolve the mystery of what that set card is, we should be able to do this. This certainly isn't a game I thought I was going to be picking up at the outset, but things have changed for the better in the last 10 minutes. We're going to lead with a copy of Area Zero, and I mean, what do you do if you're Gavone in this position? You can activate the effect of Tornado Dragon, but then I can get a Ray, and he knows I'm on Utopia Double as well. It immediately loses him the game. So instead, we'll have to activate Area Zero. We'll target our copy of Hercules Base, and our opponent will activate, oh my god, Imperial Order again! How does he always find it versus the spell deck? Well, it's not nearly as frightening this time, because I have a Cosmic Cyclone in hand. Sometimes you just draw the nuts. Okay, now let's resolve that Area Zero. Let's see what we find off the top. Any Sky Striker spell wins us the game, and yeah, none of those are Sky Striker spells. Okay, well, I think we still should be fine. Gavone's in a weird position where he has the ability to destroy the Hercules base, and doing so is probably correct, even though it's going to float me into a Kagari and put me in a winning position almost immediately. Otherwise, I'm just going to walk over everything and draw 4 cards in the process. Alright, let's go to combat. I'm attacking into this copy of Tornado Dragon, and he's going to respond with the Tornado Dragon, destroying my Hercules base. Joke's on you, that does more damage to your life points, fool. A whole 100 of them. We're going to activate the effect of Hercules base. Of course, I took this into account when dictating the life points. We'll put back a Kana, a copy of Kagari, and a copy of Multi-Roll. Boy, will it be good to get that back in our hand. I drop a couple of cards on the ground. Always important to keep extra copies of Engage below you so that if this happens, you can just scrape them off the floor. That's a Bandit Keith pro tip. I'm in an awkward position in terms of combat. I want to walk over the Sarah, of course, because it represents several monsters from deck, but at the same time, the only way I lose this game is if my opponent finds a level 4 monster off the top of the deck and makes Utopia double. For that reason, I probably have to walk into the Dionea, even though it's much less threatening. I go ahead and do it, putting him at a cool 3,400 life points, and daring him to rip something off the top. It's time for a Destiny draw, and it better be really, really good. Gavin takes a quick look at the graveyard. I don't think there's anything else he can go into. We're going to go ahead and make a Kagari and start popping off. And of course, it wouldn't be an MBT video without an egregious misplay. Watch me activate Sky Striker Mobilize Engage with a monster in my main monster zone. Folks, I promise I play the Fire Charmer. I could just go into her. You're just going to have to use your imagination and pretend that I did. We're going to go ahead and get a copy of Multi-Roll. We added it back for a reason. We're going to shuffle our deck and remember to draw a card. At the very least, I haven't been cheating in ways that neg me. Depending on how you look at it, that is a vast improvement over the previous times I've piloted this deck. Alright, again, we've added a copy of Multi-Roll. Let's see what we draw off the top. And it's another Engage, baby! Well, two large misplays, activating it while in the main monster zone, but thankfully we have mastered the ancient Strikerian art of drawing Engage off of Engage. This is the real skill test in this deck. If you're able to draw Engage off of Engage once, you can win locals, twice, you can win nationals, and 3 times, you're going to prison. Now, what puzzles me about this game is that at some point I realized I probably shouldn't have a monster in my main monster zone. I don't know why I thought Afterburner had a restriction on it that Engage didn't. I guess I was just used to Engage being extremely powerful, and shocked that it wasn't as good as I thought it was. At the end step, of course, we'll be able to resolve this multi-roll for 2, I believe, which is probably enough to lock it up, especially with a copy of Widow Anchor in the graveyard. Anything that Gavin draws off the top is not going to be good enough unless it's a card of Demise. Unfortunately, his deck special summons too often to be playing some of these blowouts that used to exist in Paleozoic Frog, so I feel pretty good about it. We're going to Shizuku Shuffle at end step and then get back just about everything relevant here. We've got a copy of Engage, we've got a copy of Widow Anchor, and honestly, that's probably enough in and of themselves. We'll shuffle them under the table. It's clear, so it's not that good. We'll set them and pass it back to him. Alright. Destiny Doodle! And it's a monster whose effect he can't activate. Well, that does it. GG's to Gavin, and this concludes the inaugural 2020 episode of Locals Live. It had everything. A cool deck and an MBT misplay.